Life doesn't always go the way we plan. There are seasons that bring us joy, laughter, and progress, and there are seasons that break us, confuse us, and leave us asking, why here? Why now? Why me? And yet the truth is this: you are not in this moment by accident. You are exactly where you're meant to be, even if it hurts. Sometimes the very place that feels like a prison is the training ground for your purpose. Sometimes the very pain that feels unbearable is the preparation for the blessing you've been praying for. Growth doesn't usually happen on the mountaintop. It happens in the valleys, in the shadows, in the places where we feel stretched and tested beyond our limits. Think about it. A seed has to be buried in the dark before it ever reaches the light. Gold has to go through fire before it becomes pure. Fire before it becomes pure. And a diamond is formed only under pressure. The same is true for you. The discomfort you feel right now is not evidence that you're abandoned. It's evidence that you're being shaped. When life hurts, we tend to believe that something has gone wrong. But what if the hurt is part of what's right? What if the trial is not meant to destroy you, but to build endurance, compassion, resilience, and faith within you? What if years from now, you look back and realize that the very season you wanted to escape was the season that prepared you for everything you were meant to do? Don't mistake the pain of the process for the absence of purpose. You are not stuck. You are being strengthened. You are not forgotten. You are being formed, in the place where you are today, as hard as it may be, is the soil where your tomorrow will grow. So instead of running from it, lean into it. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How is this shaping me? Who am I becoming in the middle of this? You may not see the full picture now, but you can trust that the author of your story wastes nothing. Not even the hurt pain is not proof of punishment. It's often proof of preparation. This is one of the hardest truths to accept when life begins to press on you from every side. We live in a world where we often associate difficulty with doing something wrong, as if every hardship is a signal that we must be off course. But the reality is that some of the deepest pains you will ever face are not the result of mistakes or failures. They are the very tools used to shape you into who you were created to become. Pain is not always a curse. Sometimes it's the classroom where life teaches you the lessons you could never learn in comfort. And if you think about your own journey, you'll realize that the moments that defined you most were rarely the easy ones. They were the nights you cried yourself to sleep but woke up with a little more strength than you had the day before. They were the battles you thought you couldn't fight but somehow survived, carrying scars that later became your testimony. We confuse pain with punishment because it feels harsh, it feels undeserved, it feels overwhelming. But preparation isn't gentle. A potter doesn't shape clay by simply admiring it. He presses it, molds it, spins it, and sometimes even breaks it to build something more beautiful. Pain is like the potter's hands. It spins you around, it pressures you, and it feels disorienting. But it is shaping you into something you couldn't see before. If comfort had its way, we would stay soft, unformed, and unfinished. But pain stretches us to new dimensions we didn't know were possible. Think of a seed that's buried. From the outside, it looks as though it has been abandoned, suffocated under the dirt. But in reality, that dark and crushing environment is exactly what it needs to sprout new life. Without that pressure, without that burial, the seed would never grow into what it was destined to become. In the same way, when life buries you under pressure, you are not being punished. You are being planted. The darkness may be uncomfortable, but the roots you are forming there are preparing you for the fruit that will one day be visible. Every person you admire, every leader, every strong and compassionate soul you've ever looked up to has been through pain that prepared them. They weren't born with resilience. It was built in the fires of trial. They didn't come out of the womb wise. They were taught wisdom by the school of heartbreak, disappointment, and loss. If you peel back the layers of their story, you'll see that their strength was not born in celebration, but in suffering. Pain didn't disqualify them. It prepared them. And the same is true for you. It's also important to realize that preparation often requires discomfort because it is meant to stretch you beyond your current capacity. Think of muscles in the human body. They only grow stronger by tearing at a microscopic level. The soreness you feel after exercise is not a sign that you are damaged. It is a sign that growth is happening beneath the surface. The same principle applies to life. Emotional, spiritual, and mental muscles grow when they are tested, stretched, and even torn a little. Pain is not the end of your strength. It is the birthplace of it. Many of us pray for growth, for wisdom, for patience, for courage. Yet when the challenges come that would produce those very qualities, we ask to be delivered from them. We want the result without the process. But preparation always carries a cost. Wisdom often comes through failure. Patience comes through waiting. Courage comes through facing fear. Compassion comes through experiencing hurt. Pain is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. And though it feels unbearable in the moment, it is often the very thing carrying you to your answered prayers. You might be walking through a season right now that feels like punishment. You might be asking yourself what you did wrong, why things have to be so difficult, why you're carrying so much weight. But what if the very thing you're labeling as punishment is actually preparation? What if the struggle is not proof that you're off course, but evidence that you're exactly on it? The more significant your future, the more intense your preparation may be. Diamonds aren't formed with gentle hands. They are formed through unimaginable pressure. That pressure doesn't destroy them. It reveals their brilliance. When pain enters your life, it strips away illusions. It brings clarity about what truly matters. It teaches you empathy for others who suffer. It forces you to confront the deeper parts of yourself that comfort allows you to ignore. Pain often reveals the cracks in your foundation so they can be rebuilt stronger. Without it, we would stay shallow, unprepared for the weight of greater responsibility. The depth of your pain is often a reflection of the depth of your potential. The greater the calling, the greater the preparation. So when you feel that weight pressing down on you, resist the temptation to see it as evidence of punishment. Instead, begin to ask yourself what it might be preparing you for. Ask yourself how this season is strengthening you, what it's teaching you, and how it's shaping you into a person who will be able to carry more, give more, and love more in the days ahead. Pain is not the enemy. It is a mentor in disguise, guiding you through a process you may not understand now, but one that will make sense when you see the full picture later. The place that feels like a setback is often the soil for your growth. When life pushes you into seasons that seem unfair, confusing, or disappointing, it's natural to think you've been knocked backward. Maybe you had plans that didn't work out, opportunities that slipped away, relationships that ended, or circumstances that seem to be dragging you down rather than lifting you up. In those moments, everything in you wants to label the season as wasted time. But the truth is, what feels like a setback can actually be the very ground where growth is happening, even if you don't see it yet. Just because it doesn't look like progress doesn't mean it isn't progress. Sometimes growth happens underground, hidden from sight, in places that seem barren. When a farmer prepares soil, it often looks destructive. The ground is broken, turned over, disrupted, and stripped of its calm surface. If you were to judge by appearances alone, you would think the soil had been ruined. But that disruption is necessary because it makes the ground fertile enough to hold seeds. Without that turning, without that breaking, the ground would remain hard and unyielding. In the same way, when life disrupts you, when it breaks the surface of your plans and expectations, it may feel like ruin, but it is actually preparation. The soil of your life is being made ready for something to grow that couldn't have taken root in the hardened ground of comfort and predictability. Consider how often in your own story the times you thought were pulling you backward actually propelled you forward. The rejection you felt crushed by later redirected you to a greater opportunity. The delay that frustrated you ended up protecting you from stepping into something you weren't ready for. The failure that embarrassed you became the very foundation of the wisdom you needed to succeed the next time. If you hadn't experienced what you labeled as a setback, you never would have developed the resilience, creativity, or patience that you carry now. Growth rarely feels like growth in the moment. It feels like loss. Only later do you realize it was gain in disguise. We often measure our lives by visible achievements, Promotions, victories, milestones, celebrations, but growth is rarely visible in the moment. Think of a tree. Before you see it rising above the surface, its roots are stretching deep underground. That unseen growth is what ensures that the tree can weather storms and bear fruit in the future. Without strong roots, the tree would topple at the first gust of wind. Your hidden seasons of struggle, your so-called setbacks, are the times when your roots are being developed. They are unseen, but they are essential. Without them, you wouldn't have the foundation to sustain the blessings you've been praying for. The danger of calling something a setback is that it blinds you to its purpose. When you name it wrongly, you treat it wrongly. You treat it wrongly. If you believe it's only there to harm you, you resist it, fight it, and waste the chance to grow through it. But if you begin to see it as soil, as ground that may not be glamorous but is necessary, you learn to lean into it. You learn to ask, what is this cultivating in me? What strength, what patience, what vision is being planted in me right now? The discomfort of the soil doesn't mean you're finished. It means something new is beginning. Think of the lives of people who've accomplished great things. Their stories are never made of constant forward motion. They are filled with seasons of waiting, rejection, failure, and pain. What looked like detours were actually training grounds. What felt like breakdowns were really breakthroughs in disguise. The soil of struggle produced the fruit of character. Without those seasons, their impact would never have had depth. You cannot separate growth from struggle, just as you cannot separate fruit from soil. Another way to see it is that setbacks strip away illusions of control. When everything goes according to plan, we start to believe we are the ones in charge of outcomes. We cling to comfort zones and stay shallow. But setbacks force us to let go, to re-examine what truly matters, to stop relying on our own strength alone. That surrender, though uncomfortable, deepens you in ways that smooth sailing never could. The setback teaches humility. It teaches perspective. It makes you compassionate toward others who are struggling. It gives you the ability to stand taller later because you've already learned how to stand in seasons when it felt impossible. Even nature itself teaches this rhythm. Winter can feel like a setback to the trees and fields. Everything looks bare, dead, and lifeless. No, but winter is the necessary season that allows rest, renewal, and preparation for spring. Without it, the cycle of growth would be incomplete. In the same way, what looks like loss in your life may actually be a season of unseen renewal, a stripping away of what no longer serves you, a preparation for what's to come. Just because it doesn't look alive doesn't mean nothing is happening. Growth often looks like stillness before it looks like motion. When you are in a place that feels like a setback, it's tempting to compare yourself to others who seem to be moving forward. But comparison blinds you to your own soil. Their path isn't your path. His timeline isn't your timeline. What you see as them being ahead may not be ahead at all. It may just be different. And what feels like you being behind may actually mean you're being deeply rooted, prepared for a fruit that will outlast shallow success. The soil of your story has its own rhythm, and the setback you are in is shaping you uniquely for the future you are meant to step into. So the next time you feel like you've been pushed back, remember that the soil is not a mistake. It may not feel like the mountaintop, but it is every bit as important. It may not look like victory, but it is the ground where victory begins. Growth often looks like dirt before it looks like fruit. What seems like a setback may be the most fertile season of your life. You are not stuck, you are being shaped. One of the greatest lies we often believe in difficult seasons is that we are trapped, that life has boxed us in and there's no way forward. It's easy to look around at circumstances that don't change as quickly as we'd like, or situations that keep repeating and assume that we're stuck in a cycle with no progress. But what feels like stagnation on the surface can actually be transformation beneath the surface. Just because you can't see visible movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. The delay, the waiting, the repetition, the stillness, all of it can be shaping you in ways that you don't recognize right now. Think of clay in the hands of a potter. When clay sits on the wheel, it may look like it's spinning in circles, going nowhere. Round and round it goes, never seeming to move forward. But in the hands of the potter, every spin, every press, every touch is shaping it into something purposeful. The clay isn't stuck, it's being molded. The same is true for your life. What feels like going in circles may actually be the necessary process that's shaping your character, building your resilience, and preparing you for what's ahead. If the clay could speak, it might say, "Oh, why am I spinning? Why am I being pressed like this?" But the potter knows exactly what he's doing. This sense of being shaped rather than stuck is critical because it shifts your perspective on waiting seasons. Waiting is not wasted time. Waiting is working time. Seeds don't grow into trees overnight. They require seasons underground, hidden and unseen. In those months where nothing appears to be happening, the roots are stretching deep, anchoring themselves, gathering nutrients, and building the foundation for what's to come. If you pulled the seed out of the soil too soon, you'd think it was stuck. But in reality, it was doing the most important work of all. The same is true of you. Your roots are being strengthened in the hidden places so that when growth does appear, it will be sustainable and lasting. When we think we're stuck, frustration builds. We start to question ourselves, doubt our decisions, and wonder if we missed our way. But if you step back, you'll realize that many of the qualities you value most in yourself today, patience, wisdom, empathy, strength, were not developed in seasons of speed. They were developed in seasons where you had no choice but to slow down, endure, and grow inwardly. Being shaped doesn't always look impressive from the outside, but it produces depth and maturity on the inside. And depth is what will sustain you when life gets harder, when the spotlight comes, or when the responsibility you've been dreaming of finally arrives. Think of the story of a caterpillar. When it enters a cocoon, it looks as though it's trapped. From the outside, you might even pity it, thinking it's confined and unable to move. But inside that cocoon, transformation is happening at a microscopic level. The caterpillar is not stuck. It is being reshaped into something completely new. Without that hidden process, it would never have the wings to fly. What looks like restriction is actually construction. And so it is with you. The cocoon seasons of life feel limiting, but they are the very places where the old you dissolves and the new you emerges. The process of being shaped also teaches surrender. When we resist, when we insist on forcing progress before it's time, we often end up damaging what could have been beautiful. Clay that jumps off the wheel too soon will never become the vessel it was meant to be. A seed dug up before it sprouts will never become a tree. A caterpillar ripped out of its cocoon will never have strong wings. Growth requires trust in the process, trust that even when you feel motionless, even when the path feels unclear, you are still being formed into something more than you can currently see. Another important truth is that being shaped usually involves discomfort. When life presses on you, stretches you, and challenges you, it can feel unfair. But just like resistance builds muscle, pressure builds character. Without that stretching, you'd remain in the same shape forever. Every hardship, every delay, every moment of uncertainty. The process of finding purpose in pain is not about minimizing the hurt or pretending it didn't matter. The pain is real and it matters deeply. But what gives it power is not just the hurt itself, it's what is built out of it. Think of a mosaic. Each broken piece by itself looks useless, sharp, and fragmented. But when a skilled artist brings those pieces together, they form a picture more beautiful than they could have been on their own. The hurts of your life may feel like shattered fragments, but they are being arranged into a story that is far more meaningful than the pain alone. Another way to see it is through the refining of gold. Gold in its natural state contains impurities that weaken its value. To remove those impurities, the gold must be placed into fire. The heat is intense, the process painful, but the outcome is purity and strength. In the same way, the seasons of hurt in your life can feel like fire. They burn, they strip, they expose, but they also purify you. They remove arrogance, shallow living, and reliance on false securities. They leave behind resilience, depth, and clarity about what truly matters. The fire of hurt is not wasted. It refines you into someone who carries more value and more wisdom than before. It is also true that different seasons prepare you for different purposes. Some hurts prepare you for empathy, teaching you to feel what others feel so you can comfort them in their pain. Some prepare you for leadership, teaching you perseverance and patience so that you can guide others through storms. Some prepare you for gratitude, reminding you not to take joy, health, or relationships for granted. And no season, no matter how dark, is purposeless. Each carries something that equips you for the next chapter. And while it is comforting to know that your pain has a purpose in your own life, it is even more powerful to know that it can be used to impact others. Every time you share your story, every time you offer encouragement from your own scars, every time you reach out to someone who is going through what you once endured, you prove that no hurt is wasted. Your survival becomes someone else's survival guide. Though your healing becomes a lifeline for someone else who feels like giving up. You become living proof that even the darkest seasons can give birth to light. When you begin to see your hurt through the lens of purpose, your perspective shifts. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, how can this be used? That question turns pain into power. It transforms bitterness into wisdom, grief into gratitude, and loss into legacy. Every season of your life, even the ones you never would have chosen, can carry meaning. And the more you allow that meaning to flow outward into the lives of others, the more you realize that not a single tear, not a single heartbreak, not a single setback was ever wasted. This chapter may be hard, but it is not the end of your story. Life has a way of convincing us that the moment we are in is permanent, that the pain we feel today will last forever, that the obstacles in front of us will never move. But what we often forget is that life moves in seasons. No winter has ever lasted forever, and no storm has ever stayed without end. What you're facing right now may feel heavy, it may feel endless, but it is only one chapter in a much larger book. And a chapter, no matter how difficult, does not define the whole story. When you are in the middle of a chapter filled with struggle, the temptation is to believe it's the conclusion. But if you pause and think about every story that has ever inspired you, you'll notice that the characters always faced hardship before breakthrough. The tension, the loss, the challenge, it all came before the turning point. The darkness of the night always comes before the sunrise. That is the rhythm of life. Your struggle is not the closing of your book. It is the setup for what comes next. Think about the way a story unfolds. If every page were easy, if the character never had to fight, never had to endure, never had to grow, would the story even be worth reading? It's the difficulties that give the story weight. It's the conflict that makes the victory meaningful. In the same way, your story is being written with intentionality. This chapter that feels unbearable may one day be the very chapter that gives your life the depth and meaning others are drawn to. What feels like a page you wish you could rip out may later become the page that defines your greatest transformation. It's important to remind yourself that you've been through other chapters before. You've walked through moments where you thought you wouldn't survive, yet here you are. You faced heartbreak, loss, disappointment, and still found ways to keep going. Each of those seasons felt final at the time, but eventually you discovered they were temporary. This one is no different. If you survived then, you will survive now. If you grew stronger, then you will grow stronger now. The chapter you are in is not the end. It is another step in your unfolding journey. The danger of believing your current chapter is the whole story is that it steals your hope. It blinds you to the possibilities of tomorrow. It convinces you to give up too soon. But hope is the fuel that carries you through difficult seasons. Hope reminds you that the pain you feel today can be transformed into purpose tomorrow. Hope whispers that even when the page is dark, the author is still writing. And as long as the pen is in his hand, the story isn't finished. Consider how the greatest breakthroughs often come right after the darkest moments. A seed pushes hardest against the soil right before it breaks through to the surface. The night is coldest just before dawn, and many times people find their greatest clarity, courage, and vision on the other side of what looked like complete defeat. If you stop reading the story too soon, you'll never see the beauty of its resolution. If you give up in the middle of the chapter, you'll never experience the joy of what was waiting on the next page. Every chapter of life has its purpose. Some chapters are filled with laughter, joy, and celebration. Others are filled with waiting, uncertainty, and hardship. But together, they create a complete story. A story that is meaningful because of its ups and downs, its victories, and its struggles. The chapter you are in now may not be easy, but it is shaping you, preparing you, and adding richness to your journey. It may not feel good, but it will not be wasted. And when you move forward, this chapter will give you strength you didn't know you had and wisdom you didn't know you needed. The truth is, your story is still unfolding. This chapter will not last forever. You will not always feel the way you feel right now. Change will come. Growth will come. Joy will come again. What feels like the end is often just the middle. What feels like a full stop is often just a comma. Your story is bigger than this moment, and the author is not finished writing. So hold on. Keep turning the pages. Trust that the next chapter has things in store that you can't yet imagine. This chapter may be hard, but it is not the end of your story. Your story is still being written, and its best chapters are still to come.